Hey, this is Scott Schwartz. I was Flick in the movie A Christmas Story, and you're listening to the RockStop with Chris Contra.
Welcome into the RockStop. Chris Contra here, and joining me on the program tonight is Scott Schwartz, who started his acting career starring in some legit classics, The Toy and A Christmas Story, to name a few. How's it going, Scott?
I'm doing good.
Good to have you here, man.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Listen, it's the new year, and, you kind of get that restart, and you see what happens in 2020.
Absolutely, yeah, that's right. We're a couple weeks removed from Christmas, where your movie, A Christmas Story, they did their annual 24-hour marathon over on the Turner stations. So,
oh, yeah, thank God I get to get some sleep now.
Yeah. You know how long they've been doing that for?
97, I think, is the first year they did it.
Wow. And, man, did they catch on. So, over 20 years of airing those 24 hours. I mean, do you flip over there on those stations and see what's up every once in a while?
A little bit here and there.
Yeah. Yeah, you were, of course, Flick in that movie, the kid who stuck his tongue on the flagpole that really inspired a whole generation of kids to learn not to do that.
Yeah, although some still do, and so I still get the phone calls. Kid did this, the kid did that. I'm like, really? Oh God.
Yeah, they didn't.
It's been all these years and nobody sued me yet, so that's nice.
Right. I guess they were just curious to see what would happen, to see if it was the same results as the movie. So how many takes of that did you do anyway?
Oh, we ended up we shot that scene over the course of 2 days, and it was only supposed to be 1 day, and then we ended up having to do it all over again. So the first time it took 12 and a half hours, and the second time it took 11 and a half hours.
Oh, wow. So, what happened? Something happen to the footage that you had to do it again?
Yeah, we shot it all done. And the developers, because back then, you're not shooting video, you're shooting, 35 millimeters, and they underdeveloped the film. We had to go do it all over again.
Oh, man. And did that bother you at all, or you didn't, you just rolled with the punches?
You're doing a job,
Right.
And it happened. So you got to go do it again. Oh, well.
Right on, yeah. And
realistically, it got me another week's pay. I was making a decent buck, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up getting more just because of how.
Right. And that was your, what was that, like your second movie, huh? It was very early in your career.
No, actually, that's my third movie. I did Toy, and then I did another film. I did a film for 20th Century Fox called Kidco, and then I did Christmas Story.
Oh, you did Kidco before that. Okay. So yeah, you at that point, I guess were an old pro on set. You knew what was up and that things like that happened.
I had never heard that a developer would underdevelop film. It doesn't happen, and I don't know if it was because we were in Ontario, if we were in Toronto, and maybe just the lab didn't know what they were doing. I don't know, because they shot plenty of stuff in Toronto before that, for decades,
Yeah.
So it happened. What are you going to do?
Right. And so Bob Clark was the director of that film, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he did. He also did Black Christmas, which was like a horror movie. He was kind of had a lot of Christmas stuff going on, a couple cult classics, I guess. And
Bob had quite an array of films that he did, and people don't know the influences that he created. He does Black Christmas, and then he was doing something else, and he started, or he was brought an idea by now a very famous director, but back then not a famous director, and they started collaborating on this project. And Bob got another film that he had to do, and he said to the guy, "Listen, you take it. Good luck. I hope it works out." Well, it ends up that it was John Carpenter in the film Halloween.
Oh, wow. So,
most people don't know that Bob, was helping in the beginnings of Halloween with John. and the influence that he had, was it Children Don't Play with Dead Things? I mean,
right.
These are classics.
Yeah.
And Bob had stuff to do with all of them.
So he had his hands in all kinds of projects that would, go on to become classics. And, John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, I think, are the main ones we think of when you think of Halloween. But, right, Bob Clark did Black Christmas before that, which was probably a big influence on John.
Black Christmas, Children Don't Play with Dead Things, right. Porky's, and Christmas Story. Nothing in common. Nothing. That's just all over the place, and this was Bob. Yeah.
So did you, when you went to audition for A Christmas Story, that was your first time meeting Bob?
Absolutely. Easiest audition I ever had in my life.
Really?
Right before that, the Toy had opened in the theaters. And then we're talking the previous weekend. And I had just finished shooting Kidco, so I was gone. I was couldn't audition for anything. I was in Arizona. And Bob called me in 4 or 5 days after the Toy came out. It was the following Tuesday or Wednesday. And he just wanted to meet me. I went in. How you doing? You got any script? No, just want to talk to you. Okay. We talked for 15 minutes. And Bob goes, I didn't have lunch. You want to go have a hot dog? We were in Manhattan. We were in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're asking, 14-year-old kid, you want to go have a hot dog? Come on, let's go. So we went, we had a hot dog, and he knew who, and we talked, and came back upstairs, and he said, it was really nice to meet you. And I was 7 blocks from my agent's office. So we figured out, my dad and I, we walk up there, how you doing? And I walked in, she said, what did you do? I said, well, I walked in, and we talked, we had a hot dog, we talked. Yeah, okay. And she goes, whatever you did good. You called, you got the movie already.
So, you didn't even know you were, going out for the role at all, and here you got the role of Flick.
And believe it or not, they sent me the script, and it didn't have the role I was playing. They never told me I was playing Flick.
So
here I am, and I'm studying the script at home. Now, I'm the lead in the Toy. I'm the lead star of Kidco. I'm going to be the lead star of Christmas Story. I memorized the whole script. I memorized Raunchy.
No shit.
We get all the way to the reading in Toronto. And Bob goes, okay, Peter, you're going to be Ralphie, and RD, you're going to play Schwartz, and Zach, you're going to play Scott Farkas, and Scott, you're going to play Flick. And I was like, come again? And so now I'm looking through the script, and I'm like, Flick has 16 written lines. That's it. 16 lines.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be there for 5 weeks. And I'm going, 16 lines, 5 weeks, that's 3 lines a week. I can do this. This is a vacation. I walked over to Bob, and I'm like, are you sure about this? I did the lead, and he's like, oh, no. You're Flick. You're going to be great. It's not the size of the role, but what you make out of it, and you're going to be great. And who knew?
Yeah.
Except Bob.
Right. He definitely had a way of knowing what was going to work in movies, and clearly that worked brilliantly. You got one of the most memorable scenes in the movie for sure.
Yeah, Bob's intuition was off the charts. There's no question. And I think the biggest reason, he never said it to me, but I think the biggest reason that he gave me that role was because he saw I could handle Richard Pryor and Jackie Gleason.
Yeah.
And I could ad-lib, and I could go with the flow. So in the script, it just says, Flick, stick, tongue to pole. That's it. That's all it says. And we're out there, and I said, Bob, what do you want me to do? He's like, well, do whatever you want. If I don't like it, I'll tell you I don't like it. I said, okay. So I just came up with all the shenanigans, all the stuff that I came up with. And he goes, that was good, but give me more. Just go overboard. Give me more. I said, okay, fine. So I went up in volume and what I was doing, and if we get done, he says, cut. He says, nope, I like your way better. Okay, do it the way you did it first. Okay. And that's, even when we redid it, I did the exact same stuff, and it came out that way. Bob was amazing.
That he gave you that kind of freedom on set there, and he knew, like you said, your work with Gleason and Pryor, that you could handle something like that, and that he liked it enough that he would leave it in the movie the way that you wanted to do it, just anything that you came to you, right?
Yeah, really, that's what happened. Again, intuition is amazing. If you have it, he had loads of it.
Yeah.
And he knew that he just let's let the kid run. Just let him go. See what happens.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing? He hates it, and you do it differently.
Exactly.
But he liked what I did. Great. Okay, it worked.
That's awesome, man. So, like, you've worked with plenty of directors and things. Would you say Bob Clark was one of the best that you ever worked with?
Well, again, for me, Bob almost gave me personally no direction at all.
Yeah.
He just kind of let me run with the character because Flick is just a fun guy, makes jokes, and he's got the tongue in the pole thing.
Yeah.
So he was more concentrated on Peter Billingsley, Ralphie, that character, that's the lead, that's where his motivations were at to really get that character the right way that he wanted.
Yeah.
Right. I worked with, the first film is, of course, Richard Donner, in The Toy. And again, Dick Donner, great director. If you look at the character of Eric Bates, he's a misunderstood kid who just wants to have fun and be loved by his dad. Okay, great. That's it. That's not, an overly difficult thing to do for a fun kid.
Right.
For the one scene in the limousine at the end of the film that they had him, make me cry and all that stuff. 98% is me just doing stuff with Pryor.
Yeah, right.
And he sort of let Richard Pryor just leave me, and we're just going to go and we're going to do and we're going to have fun and okay, great. And then I did Kidco with Ron Maxwell, and Ron was a great director. We would sit, chat, and there were other things that went on during the shoot that where everything was good, but it was a situation where I needed to be done by a certain date, and so I went into overdrive. That's the way I put it.
Yeah.
I do one movie, I hold my own Gleason and Pryor, and I felt great. I booked Kidco, let's rock and roll. And I felt like Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
I was basically secretary. Just get on my back, and I'm going to ride everybody to the finish line. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
And Bob and Ron Maxwell knew that. And so, as we went, there were notes and things. But again, the role of Dickie Cessna in that film, he's an entrepreneur kid, and he's with his sisters, and he turns horse manure into compost and with hay and oats, and he does this fertilizer thing.
Yeah.
It's a fun character. It's a likable character.
Right.
And he liked what I was doing to start off with, so we just kept going.
When you start with a movie like, with Gleason and Pryor, did you know, you were pretty young at the time. Did you know of the legend of both of these guys at that point?
I wasn't as young as people think. I was 13 and 14. I had my birthday while we shot.
Okay.
I knew the Honeymooners. I knew the Hustler. I was a Smokey and the Bandit fanatic.
Huh.
I did impressions. I did impressions of Gleason to Gleason. And impression is the highest form of flattery. And it's one thing when it's coming from an adult. It's another thing when you're in front of a 13-year-old kid who's 4'5" and weighs 52 pounds, and he's doing Buford T. Justice, and he's doing Ralph Cramden.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he was known to hate working with kids and animals. That was a known legend, and I was told that. I made the guy laugh, and I was gold, and he was gold to me.
So you were, when you heard, that he hated working with kids and animals, did that intimidate you going in, or did you have it in your mind that, I'm gonna win this guy over?
It's funny. You can say now anything. In trying to remember back, my thought process, really, I'm standing there. The first time I meet him is at the greeting meeting that we had in his hotel room. He had the presidential suite, whatever, and everybody's there. Ray Stark, who's a 40-year producer, worked with Streisand, Funny Girl. A star is born. Okay.
Yeah. Then
you get Richard Donner, Superman, The Omen. Okay, these are legends. Then you've got another producer and the first AD, and my dad, and Dennis Gleason and Pryor and the other actors in film. Okay. And I'm sitting 2 seats away from him. And I sat down and I remember looking at him, and I didn't go, oh my God, it's Jackie Gleason. No, I went, holy shit, it's Buford T. Justice. This is cool.
Yeah.
And I did the impressions for Richard Donner, you know, in L.A. and during the screen test and when I did the wardrobe fitting and all that stuff. And he started me off right on the right step. We didn't even introduce. We wasn't even, hi, I'm so-and-so, hi, I'm... No. Richard Donner goes to me, Scott, go over to Mr. Gleason and do that thing you do, the sheriff thing. And, I mean, this is the director. He tells you what to do, and you go and you do it.
Right.
So I walked over to Gleason, and I'm smaller than he is. He's sitting, I'm standing, I'm so smaller than he is.
Yeah.
And the first thing I ever said to Jackie Gleason, I walked over and I said, there's no way that you could come from my loins. As soon as we get home, first thing I'm going to do is punch your mama in the mouth.
Yeah.
And he just cracked up and he's like, is that all you know? I said, oh no. So well, go ahead. So I started doing more of it and he just kept laughing. It was just something that naturally happened. And it was just great because he smiled and he laughed and it was funny.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
and in his own head, you know, I mean, we talked later about it. And his assistant talked to me about it. He was just like, hey, you had me from the beginning. You know, you did something nobody's ever done. You didn't even say hello. And you did the best impression of me I ever heard.
Damn.
That was it. Just something that when you're on a set, I've done Broadway and off-Broadway. I've done 100 commercials, and you do so much work, and you're working with people. So it's different when you work with them on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You know, you have this thing, and they go from being this iconic character in your head, he's playing your dad.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, the second, third, fifth day, I'm calling him Pop. Nobody else can do this because I'm the only kid in the movie, really.
Yeah.
And it just came natural. Now, you spoke with respect to this man. It was Mr. Gleason, or you could call him the Great One. And here I am going, hey, Pop, you want to talk about this? And he's responding. He's not getting mad at me because it just came naturally that we had this instant rapport thing.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, you had Richard Pryor.
Right.
And I knew who he was. I had seen Stir Crazy, and I had seen Bingo Long, and I had seen, you know, every other thing that he had done that I could see. And again, Richard, I was a fan. My father was one of those people, my parents, they didn't care about language. You know, so somebody said the F word, big deal. Who cares? You know?
Yeah.
So I knew the stuff, and I knew who he was, but I knew he was fun. And my personality is fun.
Yeah.
So we got along from the absolute, how you doing? I said, Mr. Pryor, it's a pleasure. He goes, oh, no. Don't give me any of that crap. And that's not exactly what he said. He used the, superlative, but, you know. And he's like, no. You call me Richard, Rich, Dick. I don't care what you call me. You don't call me Mr. Pryor. That's my boss. Okay. He was the best. Never been anybody I've ever met in my whole life who you could stand in front of and say, at that time, you know, this is, 82. He's number one. I mean, he is already the godfather of comedy. He is an icon to tens and tens of millions. And the guy had zero ego. None. Zero.
And that's incredibly rare in Hollywood to be that famous and yet have, as you say, no ego at all.
Well, he had gone through the time of the ego, the cocaine, the crack.
Right. So,
and,
so when you met him, he was already beyond all that. Yeah.
Yeah. He burned himself up, and that was all behind him, and he became a different guy.
Yeah.
He became a understanding guy, a guy who wanted to educate, who wanted to learn. He was studious, constantly reading books, highlighting things. You ask him a question, he would answer the question. We would sit and talk, and here I am, I turned 14, I'm pre-puberty,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew nothing. I knew almost nothing about girls and women. I knew what they were, and it's cutesy and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But Richard's on the set, and he's talking to me, and he's telling me stuff, and he'd be thrown in jail now for this stuff.
As far as things he was telling you?
He had no filter.
Yeah.
We're sitting there at at the plantation house in Louisiana. There's women all over the place. He goes, what do you think of that woman over there? And there's a big, busty brunette, gorgeous girl in her. And I'd say, oh, she's very cute. And he'd be like, oh, I went to bed with her last night. I did this and I did that. That's not what he said. He just let it go.
Yeah, he was even more explicit.
And, yeah, of course. And I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. I didn't have an idea of what the hell he was talking about.
You know, that's kind of what I was kind of going to ask you about like that. I mean, you were, 13 at the time, so, maybe a little older than we thought, but you're still young. And when you hear some of the, raunchy humor in the movie or even lines that, Richard Pryor would say, whether it's, in the script or not, I mean, you really didn't comprehend a lot of it, right?
Yes and no. Okay, I'll give you the two examples.
Mm-hmm.
The first scene when I get Richard, Ned Beatty introduced us. Jack, this is Eric. Eric, this is Jack. Jack, this is Masturbate.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have a clue, man. Not a clue in the world. I had a straight face. I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. You just go with what's written. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So I'm straight face. Okay. So then you get to the other side of the coin. We're all sitting at the table in the kitchen, and Fancy Bates does the whole thing about her protellas on her boobs.
Mm-hmm.
So all day, Gleason and Pryor are joking about her boobs. Now, I know what boobs are, okay?
Yeah.
But the whole day, they're joking. And at one point, the girl that played Fancy, one of her boobs came out of her dress.
Whoa. And
she didn't know it. And Gleason is looking at her. Now, he's directly in front of her. I'm to his right. Pryor's to the left. He looks at her and he goes, honey, your left is more than your right. He's like, what? He's like, your left is more than your right. And I looked and her boob is out of her top.
Oh,
and I just sat there. And I smiled and he points to her and he's pointing at her. He goes, your left is more than your right. And she looked at, oh my goodness, I'm sorry. She put it away. Okay. So now we get to my line after she's done this whole diatribe about her boobs and the whole thing or whatever. And the line is, Fancy, what did your boobs look like before?
Yeah.
Now that is supposed to be an absolute deadpan, no smile, no nothing. Okay?
Yeah.
After 7 hours of listening to Gleason and Pryor joking about her boobs, I couldn't do it. I kept cracking up and I'm breaking up and I'm smiling and Richard Donner's going, Scott, you can't smile. Well, every time I get there, I couldn't help myself because Pryor and Gleason are dying. They're laughing their asses off.
Yeah.
So what you see is over my shoulder, you can see my profile onto Richard Pryor, and I go, Fancy, what did your boobs look like before? And I half smile, and Pryor spits out the water, and that's the end of the scene. I couldn't do it with a straight face because I had 7 hours of them doing this to me.
Yeah. That's freaking hilarious. So that's a good behind the scenes note right there on what went on and kind of the atmosphere, I guess, on set of that movie. I mean, they were just Pryor at least definitely did not hold back anything.
Oh no, they didn't let anything go. Let me tell you, it was fun. It was incredibly educational.
Yeah.
Because I was a film buff before I got there. So like I said, I knew all of their movies and everything else. But, Mr. Gleason called me to his trailer one day and we were going to do the scene and blah, 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 whatever. And we had some downtime after lunch and okay, fine. And I started asking him questions that a 13-year-old would never ask. We're sitting there and I said, Mr. Gleason, I know that you grew up, in New York and this and that. And I'm like, did you know George M. Cohan? Maybe not everybody knows who George M. Cohan is.
Yeah.
He was Mr. Broadway in the teens, 20s, 30s, and the movie Yankee Doodle Dandy with James Cagney, he plays George M. Cohan.
Yeah, so you're going back quite a bit.
I'm going way back. And Gleason looks at me and he goes, how the hell do you know who George M. Cohan is? And I said, well, actually, I said Yankee Doodle Dandy with James Cagney is one of my all-time favorite movies. And then I had to read books on all about Cohan. And I thought maybe you met him, you knew him. And he goes, yes, I knew him. And he's telling me stories about George M. Cohan. And he's just blowing my mind.
Wow.
Yeah. And Richard Pryor, he was the other way. He said to me, Scotty, You're a young guy. You're going to have questions your whole life. You will always have my phone number. Anything you want to ever ask me about women, drugs, alcohol, life, love, anything you want, you pick up the phone and you call me and you ask. He was my muse. He was my teacher. He was my friend. He was my older brother, my dad, all of it.
Did you take him up on that advice and ever ring him up?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't have to use the superlatives, but I'm going to give the ultimate example.
Okay.
You know, people, I always ask this question. I say, the first time you partook with a lady in your life and you lost your virginity, who did you call? And most people, one called my friend, the other called his best friend, or some, this or that. And I'm like, that's great. I called Richard Pryor. It was I can tell you, I mean, I remember like it was yesterday. It was a Friday night. It was 11:30 in New York. And I knew Richard was in Hawaii. And I said, wait a minute. It's only 5:30 at night there. I can call him.
Yeah.
So I called him on the phone and I said, Rich, it's Scott. He's like, what's going on, kid? How you doing? I said, dude, I did it tonight. He said, what do you did it? I said, I had some fun with a lady tonight. He goes, really? You got to tell me all about it. And we started talking, and we were on the phone for an hour because he's like, we know you had fun. Did the lady have fun? So now he's giving me a sex ed lesson on the phone right off the bat. I mean, this was Richard.
So, did he, I mean, he clearly had all kinds of life experiences and advice that he could give you. So when you, had that moment there, is that the first name that just popped in your head?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
No question. Yes. I was on the way home and I went, I call Richard.
Mm-hmm.
Because I knew that he would just get a kick out of it.
Yeah.
Because that was just his personality.
Right.
Again, we had nothing in common if you think about it. I'm a low middle class Jewish kid from New Jersey whose dad's a window cleaner. My mom worked at AT&T and managed 7-Eleven. And he's, a black guy from Peoria, Illinois, who grew up in a whorehouse. And yet the common ground we found was our love of entertainment, our love of film. The people that he loved, I knew who they were, and I saw their movies because I was a movie junkie.
Right. Right.
So we found this common ground, and then it just became the friendship because life takes its course, and you call and you talk and this is what's going on and this and this, and he was my biggest fan before anybody was, other than the family and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, he kept up on me, wished me well. If he was going to be on the East Coast, his assistant called me up and said, hey, Richard's going to be in New York. He's going to be at Radio City Music Hall. Do you want to go? And he was shooting Brewster's Millions in New York with John Candy. And we had talked before that, and so he calls me on a Saturday. He's like, hey, are you going to be in New York at all this week? And I said, yeah, I'm going to school in Manhattan on the 10th, between 9th and 10th and 50 and 60th. And he goes, great. Walk across Central Park West, come to the plaza. I'm shooting a movie. You got to come say hi. Okay. And then we talked, and he told me he was with John Candy and all this stuff. And I brought what they call a lobby card, an 11 by 14 flash with John Candy sitting in his Trans Am, and met John Candy and he signed it for me, and I still have it.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That was Rick.
Wow. So, I mean, you really did make a great friend when you were doing that movie, The Toy, and it was with Richard Pryor.
I was friends with him until the day he passed. I saw him a couple months before, and the MS was really bad, and, he couldn't talk for about the last year and a half of his life.
Yeah.
But I would go and visit him, and we would sit, and, I'd play with his TV, and I knew what stuff he liked to watch, and we'd sit, and he'd kind of just look at me, and I would talk to him. It was a one-way conversation.
Yeah.
I knew what it was. But I wanted to give him love. I wanted to show the love and the care, and I'm still here, just because you're sick, that doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah.
I miss him every day, man, because the stuff that's happened since he's gone and the world as we know it today, I mean, he would have just had a blast with this stuff.
As far as the PC culture, things like that.
Oh my God! What would they have said to him?
I know.
What could you have said to him? Richard, you're not PC. He'd have been like, no shit. I mean, what would he have said?
Yeah.
You know, he would have looked at people and gone, "Are you serious?"
Right. I mean, yeah. I don't know. I mean, even that like a movie like The Toy could fly these days because of what has happened. Yeah.
No, you couldn't. There's no way.
Right.
You know, I mean, people have come out and said all the things. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. And I'm like, listen, if you don't get it, you don't get it.
Right.
It's not a slavery movie. Come on, let's face reality, okay?
Yeah.
It's a screwed up relationship between a father and a son, and he hires a guy to be his playmate, basically, for the week.
Right. He's a lonely kid. Yeah.
It comes from a French film called Raunchy, and it's a French guy and a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you bring it to the United States. Richard Pryor is the #1 comic on the earth. He's #1 with this and that, box office and everything else. Who are you going to use?
Yeah, it only makes sense.
You know, could they have used a Gene Wilder? Could they have? Maybe.
Yeah.
But Richard was on fire, and he had a deal with Columbia Pictures, and Columbia was doing the movie, and here you go.
Yeah, and and the people that complain about it these days, you got to realize, I mean, it's a comedy. You don't like it, you don't got to watch it. But the tight assness of the entertainment industry these days is ridiculous, because all these classic movies like The Toy and things would never have been made if people like that are in charge these days were making movies back then.
Listen, what happens throughout the film? Again, they're two strangers. They come together for this one reason, whatever. But by the end of the film, you can see the love that two characters have for each other.
Yeah.
That have nothing in common.
Right.
Nothing, zero. And Richard brings the father and the son together.
And I think that is a great point there that you're making, because it is true. Yeah, you could say that you want about the raunchy comedy and everything, but there is a message in there that people that are too short-sighted and they just look at the, problems they may have with it being PC or not. But yeah, there is a message in there, exactly as you just said.
It's amazing to see what people have said and where they've gone with everything. And,
yeah,
you can say this, but you can't say that. I'm like, honestly, I say whatever I want. I'm in a different position than most people. My muse, my teacher, my brother, my father, my friend was Richard Pryor. What do you think he taught me?
Yeah, right.
This is what he taught me. He said, you can say whatever you want. If people don't like it, that's their problem.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
The things that have been done in the past 10, 15 years, the things that have been said, this is utterly ridiculous. If you don't like something, change the channel.
Right.
If you don't like the content of that film, don't watch it.
Couldn't agree more with that. I couldn't agree more. And
we live in a country. #1 is the freedom of speech.
Yep.
And I'm not saying go out and just call people names.
Right. I mean, you have freedom. That's the whole point, is what do you want to do with that freedom?
I mean, sometimes, again, and I'm kind of blowing my lead gig thing that I do if I'm doing a speech or stand up, or if I'm doing motivational speaking or whatever. Most people know who I am. They know the films I'm in. And so I like to see where people are going right off the bat. And I come out, how you doing, everybody? It's great. Listen, let's just get the elephant out of the room right away. So has anybody else in here bought a black man beside me?
Yeah.
Now that is absolutely, utterly un-PC to its max.
Right.
And when I thought of it, I said, there's only one person I can call now. I couldn't call Richard. He's gone. Okay. And I called his daughter, and I said, hey, what do you think of it? And she cracked up. She said, dude, that's hysterical. My father would have fallen off the couch.
Yeah, right. That's
because
true.
That's what he was about. He's about making people think.
Right.
And moving people's emotions.
I'm telling you, there's so much, right. And doing stand-up comedy or whatever, people, they want to be risque, but they want to do it in a very careful way, it seems like. But that was everything Richard Pryor wasn't, man. The guy was unleashed, and he was just very unfiltered, and he said what he said, and that's why he's a legend today.
The funniest part is I've done that several times, And when I look at the people, when I look at the audience, whatever it consists of, the white people get insulted. And the African-American black people, they're dying. They're falling off their chairs, cracking up because they understand it's hysterical.
Yeah. Right. I mean,
and I'm like, who are you insulting? Nobody. Get over it.
Right. It's based on a movie role that you did, and it's humor. That's what it is. I mean, you're here to laugh at some jokes, and that's what you do.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Life is too short to take this thing so damn seriously.
Right.
Let's have fun in the life and the time that we have.
Yeah. Now,
Richard's gone 15 years, or 14 years. 14 years.
Yeah.
And it seems like yesterday that he and I were laughing and joking and going to sets and talking to people and introducing me to people. I mean, he opened up doors for me that I could never, ever think would ever be open. And, just one of the most amazing human beings I've ever known.
That's really great. I mean, did you ever see another time there while he would, before he got sick and stuff, that you guys may work together again?
No, we actually never talked about working together on anything else. It's not what came up in the course of his work. But there was an instance at the Comedy Store in L.A., and I was working as a doorman. And I'll make a long story short. He was coming in. I went in the back to say hi. And in the room, in the little green room area that they have, was his wife, Jennifer, Sam Kinison, and Robin Williams, and me, and Richard. And we're all heading out because it's time for Richard to go on. And when you go out the door, if you go to the left, you go to the stage. And Robin Williams walked out and went to the left. Sam Kinison walked out, went to the left. Jennifer went out, went dead straight ahead to go watch the show. And I'm holding the door, and Richard looks at me and goes, "What are you going to do?" Well, I'm working. He goes, "No, not for the next little while, you're not." He grabbed me and pulled me at the back of the stage.
Huh.
So now I'm on the stage at the Comedy Store. There's two little steps in the back. And Robin Williams and Sam Kinison do 20, 25 minutes. Sam turns around and hands the mic to Richard, and he sits next to me. And it's Richard and Robin Williams. And they do 20 or 25 minutes. And Robin Williams turns around, he walks back to me, and he hands me the microphone. And I'm like, "And what would you like me to do?" He looks at me and he goes, "That's your boy. Go get him." Okay. So now Robin Williams and Sam Kinison are sitting behind me and Richard Pryor. And I walked up with the mic. And Richard looks at me and he goes, "Oh, this is going to be good." And by now, of course, I'm an adult. I was 21 almost at the time. No, I was 21.
Mm-hmm.
And he just starts going. And he's making jokes about me. I'm a tiny little Jewish guy. You know what that means. He has small teeth and everything else. And he's just going at me. And it's all in good fun. We know this.
Yeah.
So I turned around and I let him have it. And I'm just telling stories and stuff and this and that. He's cracking up. The two boys in the back, Robin and Sam, are going nuts. And we did almost a half an hour.
Wow.
And it had to be maybe one of the greatest nights of my life. And there's no video. There's no cell phone cameras. There's no pictures. The only thing was the guy up in the sound booth, because all the other three boys are gone. Three guys are gone now.
Yeah.
The guy up in the sound booth actually found me about 5 years ago now on Facebook. And he's in New Jersey, and since then we've seen each other and whatever. And I said, "Do you remember this?" He goes, "Dude, I still don't have a VHS tape that I could have stuck in that machine that night."
Damn.
So Richard and I did do a little bit of shtick up on the main room stage at the Comedy Store. So that was pretty incredible.
Yeah, and it was mostly all improv, huh?
All improv.
All improv.
Nothing's written.
Yeah.
Nothing's written. I'm working as a doorman.
I know. So you just got up there and just, it was probably just the chemistry between you guys in life that you were able to, spit out some of those lines and things, and then get in the place cracking up.
Oh, listen, when you can say anything, you're on a stage comedy show, and there's no PC, nothing. You just say whatever you want, and you know that no matter what you say, you're not going to hurt, insult, nothing. The person standing next to you,
yeah,
they're going to crack up just as much as you are.
Right.
Because they know it's all in good fun, and it's just to make people laugh and have a good time, and that's what we did.
That's awesome. That's a great story right there. Now, I wanted to ask you about, like, you know, your life. You, as a young kid, you got into acting and stuff. And do you think you would do anything different in looking back, as far as, you know, maybe, yeah, you were hearing all these stories, you took them as great life lessons and things, but do you think it happened a little too fast or anything?
No. If you say to me, is there anything I would want to change or do differently? After I finished doing Christmas Story, I probably would have come out to LA for 6 months to a year and gone on the circuit for TV shows, either guest starring or being a regular for pilots or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I never did that. You know, my parents, they worked and whatever. We were in New Jersey, and I got auditions in New York, but it's different when you're in LA and you're right in front of people. And, you know, I probably could have had the help of others if I would have come out. I could have talked to Richard Donner or Richard Pryor and say, hey, who do you know? What, you know, do you know anybody, NBC, CBS, you know, ABC, whatever.
Yeah.
That's probably the only thing that I would have done different. The rest of it, not a chance.
Yeah.
Would not trade any of those three experiences for anything. You know, people said, oh, well, what about Home Alone? I'm like, look, that's 10 years later.
Yeah.
You know.
So you didn't have...
They said, what about E.T.? And I said, okay, what about E.T.? Steven Spielberg movie? Okay, would have been great. What do people remember about E.T.? They remember E.T. Okay.
Yeah, right.
You know, I mean, Henry Thomas and I are friends.
Yeah.
You know, we're pals. You know, we run into each other and laugh and hug and joke and whatever. But would I, you know, replace one for the other? Not a chance. No way, no how. I got Gleason, Pryor, Richard Donner, Ray Stark. I got all that. And Ned Beatty and Teresa Ganzel and Wilfred Hyde White. I got that experience and the knowledge. Then I do Kidco. And, you know, I had the star of the movie and all that stuff, but it was the lessons that I learned, the things that I did. I grew a lot as an actor and knowing how to make film and how to make film work. And then I do Christmas Story, and it turns into, who could guess? You know, it's a little movie. It's a $4.5 million budget film with no special effects, no big stars, no nothing. MGM didn't even want to put the movie out. They want to stick it on video, and that was it. Wow. And it becomes an iconic film. It's in the National Library, you know, Registry in Congress.
Yeah.
You know, and it's become this other thing, this iconic American cultural film.
Yeah, it really did.
People love and adore, and you get an action figure, and, you know, on a Monopoly game, and a lunch pail, and all this other stuff. And it's just, not everybody gets to experience that.
Right.
How could I turn around and go, oh no, I would give that up? Not a chance.
I hear you. I just know there's a lot of child stars that look back and say, you know, like Gary Coleman, for example. I mean, I know he said that he would have done a lot of things different, and he hated that he was a child star and all this kind of stuff. But, you know, it's interesting to hear different perspectives, you know?
Listen, everybody's different.
Right.
Everybody's stories are different. Everybody's experiences are different. I was mature for my age to start. I grew up going to film clubs with my dad, and I was around adults, and I started doing work in show business, and I'm around adults. So by the time I'm 12, 13, 14 years old, I have the mentality of a 20-year-old. I'm doing Broadway and off-Broadway. And
so do you think you got along better with adults than, kids your age?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, it was, you know, and the things that I did, again, because I was a curious person. I wanted to learn everything. Mm-hmm. Kids on movie sets, I see what they do, or on TV shows. They go in their dressing room and they play with their buddies, or they do whatever. I didn't do that. I had lunch with the crew guys. I talked to the sound operator and the boom operator and the lighting guy and everybody.
Yeah.
You know, the transportation coordinators. I mean, these were like the boys. So that's what I hung out with. And you know, I was never treated like a kid, because when I opened my mouth, I wasn't a stupid kid. You know, God. No, I didn't do that stuff.
I mean, I got to ask that. I mean, did it make your time in school difficult for you? Because, you know, you really got along. You hung out better with adults.
Yes and no, because I had friends that were my friends previous to.
Yeah.
So and thank goodness, and I knock on whatever, most of the guys that were my friends in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade are still my friends. I have one friend from kindergarten. I have one friend from 2nd grade.
Really?
And they are still my friends. They will be my brothers. They will be my friends. I will do anything for them.
Yeah.
They need, I'm there, and that's it. There's no question.
Right.
I went in high school, my freshman and senior year, I went to my local school. And sophomore, junior year, because I was doing the movies my freshman year, their curriculum was not set up for me to miss school. So they needed me in the classroom. So I had to make a decision. Am I going to continue in show business, or am I going to, not and go to, regular school?
Yeah.
So, of course, I'm going to continue in show business. So I ended up going to school in New York called Professional Children's School. And by the time I get there, I'm a sophomore in high school. I knew what girls were. And the school was for any kind of kids in any kind of show business. So you had singers, actors, dancers, musicians, ballet dancers, whoever it was. And the girls outnumbered the boys 4-1.
Nice.
So, I had a blast in school.
Yeah.
My classmates, we had a certain time frame again during that period where I went to school with some great people. My classmates were Christian Slater, Ricky Lake, Malcolm Jamal Warner, Anthony Michael Hall. Even though he was younger, Savion Glover, who, was a dancer.
Mm-hmm.
Martha Plimpton. Hunter Reno, Janet Reno's niece. Katya Sassoon, Vidal Sassoon's daughter.
Huh.
They were my classmates.
Yeah.
And again, if they come to any of the reunions and I go, we're all still friends.
Really? Yeah.
But, people have different vices in life. Some people go to drugs, some people go to alcohol. I enjoy the company of ladies.
I can't blame you for that. And I mean, I guess that will sort of parlay into, what you did in the 90s, some of your, working in the adult.
Well, that's later.
Yeah, right.
Later.
That's later in the adult industry a little bit. I mean, did you worry about any stigma that you may, not be able to get back into mainstream Hollywood when doing that?
When you're not working regularly for, 8, 9 years, whatever it was, I did a few things here and there. At the end of the day, you got to make a living. You got to put food on the table, and you got to put a roof over your head.
Yeah, right.
And that industry opened up its arms and said, hey, you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Do you want to do this? Okay. I'm putting a roof over my head, gas in my car, and food on the table.
Yeah.
There are people, this and that. I'm like, look, I was a heterosexual male. I didn't break any laws, and I didn't go to jail.
Right.
The fact that on a moral issue, you may have a problem with it. Well, that's your problem. If it's not my problem, I don't know what's your problem.
Yeah, right. I mean, I just wondered if it crossed your mind, that, you knew the tabloids probably jump on that story, the former child star.
A little bit. There were conversations that I had, before I decided to do certain things in that industry that I had. And, somebody said, what about your mainstream career? And I said, how many times did I work last year? How many bills do I have? Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do.
Right. I get you. Yeah.
And they're just people as well doing a job. They some of them, they get a certain stigma to them, it's this or it's that. And I'm like, look, they're people doing a job. And there's probably, I'm out of that business long gone for now. It's 20 years already.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm still friends with some of them because they were my friends. And I was their friend. And I don't care what they did. They didn't hurt anybody. They didn't go to jail.
Yeah, right.
And what's great is a lot of them, they're long out, of course. And they built other lives,
Yeah.
They live in, whether it's Nebraska, South Dakota, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, wherever they are. Yeah. I have their number. They have mine. Some of them very quietly are in my social media. Yeah. If they want me to call them, or they're going to call me, or they say, hey, you got to hear this joke or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they're people, and they have kids and families, and, a lot of them have done extremely, they've done well for themselves. And I'm not here to judge, man. Nobody should judge.
Right. And I think
if they're good people, and they have good hearts, you know what? They're good people.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think too much just goes into, because they did that or whatever, that it defines them for the mainstream. They can't do anything else. But that's a bunch of bullshit. I mean,
listen, look over the last 10 or 15 years. How many adult stars have gone into mainstream films?
Yeah.
It's all over the place. Now with, the internet and Google and every other thing you can look at, it's all there.
Yeah.
It's not hidden. It's not hidden anymore. It's just out there, and it is what it is.
Right.
Right. And again, I have some really, really good friends who were in that industry. A couple of them are still in the industry to some degree. But they're good people.
Right.
I mean, I'll name a name, Christy Canyon. Okay. She was an icon throughout the 80s and 90s. Okay. She's married. She adopted 3 kids from 2, I think, from the Philippines and 1 from Japan. She saved her money. She's basically retired. She doesn't have to do anything. I think she still has a radio show that she does. But she does it just to do something. Her husband, I've known for probably close to 30 years. And they're good people. July 4th, July 3rd, I get a phone call. Hey, what are you doing tomorrow? You coming over for the barbecue, right? They're my friends.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as I said, I mean, I think people overreact about certain things like that. And though you've been out of that industry for 20 years or whatever you said, I mean, would you?
20.
Yeah, right.
20 years I'm gone.
But I mean, but you don't have any real grudges. As you said, it was somewhat of a positive experience, and you've made some, good lifelong friends out of it. Would you go back if an opportunity came up?
Not today.
No,
not today. I mean, listen, the world is different. Everything is different. And I got an AARP card, man. I'm not going back there.
Okay. Just checking. All right.
Yeah. It's not, it had its place. It had its time. And it's just back there,
Right.
Nothing. I mean, listen, I was asked many times when they were doing all the offshoot films, the Star Wars parody and this parody and that parody. And people were asking me to do stuff, not in a sexual manner, just to play a character or a role in a thing. And I'm like, you know what? Nah, did that already, but thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. So they actually did come up with you during with the parody thing going on. And, of course they would come to you, but yeah, you're not
and
interested.
I laughed. I said, there's one guy who was huge and he was big in these things and he's making it. And he calls me up and he was like 22 years old when he called. And this has got to be, oh God, late 90s? No, let me do that. Early 2000s, like 2007, 2008, 2009, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, when I got out of this business, you were in middle school.
Yeah.
Forget it.
Right. Now you talk about vices, and that was women kind of your thing there, and of course other child stars fell into drugs, and I know you were friends with Corey Haim, the late great actor Corey Haim, who I think he kind of cleaned up near the end, right?
The last about 16 months, he was pretty much cleaned up. I mean, he still smoked pot, stuff like that, but that's today. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares.
Right.
But everything else he had quit and, had nothing to do with it. It was 2010, he got walking pneumonia.
Yeah.
And it took him out. And the walking pneumonia, it acts like a cold. And you think you got a cold and, he wasn't feeling well. He's having chicken soup and hot tea and whatever. And you don't know, but if you don't go to the hospital within basically 42 hours, 48 hours, you're finished. Your lungs fill up with water and it's all over. And that's what happened to him.
Yeah.
Now, because he had the history of not doing the right thing, people said, oh, it must be because, and I'm like, no, that's not what happened. This is what happened.
Yeah.
Now, Brittany Murphy, the actress, she didn't have a drug problem, but she got walking pneumonia. She passed away.
Right.
Her husband, 7 months later, same thing, passed away. Nobody said that about them.
Right.
Walking pneumonia can affect anybody, can happen. It did, and unfortunately, Corey Haim is long gone. And, you know, I mean, I worked with him in 86, and I knew him from that day until the day he passed. I saw him 2 weeks before he was gone.
Was he in good spirits then when you saw him?
Oh, we had a blast. We were sitting at his apartment just shooting the bull.
Wow, that's great.
Laughing and joking and whatever, you know, and it's what life is going to throw, that the curveballs life throws. You just don't ever know, and that was what was meant to be for his path, and it's a shame, and he was a hell of an actor, much better than, you know, most of the child stars of that era.
Yeah.
And, you know, good-looking boy, had everything going for him, and this is what happened, you know, and, you know, it's just unfortunate. You know, there's other people it should have happened to, but it didn't happen to, and they're still here. What are you going to do? Yeah,
I mean, he was definitely in some great movies, very good actor, and, you know, I think he gets mixed up there with Corey Feldman quite often, that they think of the two Corys, but Corey Haim was was certainly an individual, and it's a little annoying sometimes when they always group him together with the two Corys.
Well, Haim was a much better actor. He was a much better looking guy, and he was a much better person.
So you had
a much better person than the other one. I don't mention his name. I don't like the things that he's done over the past 10 years. You know, he cannot seem to let Corey Haim rest in peace. He doesn't let his mother alone with the things that he says and does, and doing, you know, GoFundMe for $400,000 to do a movie that nobody's ever going to see, he's never going to make, so he can live high on the hog on other people's money. I don't appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, so you used
and it's funny you bring this up, and believe it or not, earlier this afternoon I got a phone call from Todd Bridges, and we had some of the same conversation.
Really?
Todd's like a brother.
From different strokes.
Todd's been my friend for over 30 years. He's a homie. He's my brother. And we were having that same kind of conversation about that same person earlier today.
So, I mean, of course, you know, without, you know, mentioning his name, but you used to be close with him. I mean, I can remember hearing you guys on the Howard Stern show back in the day.
That's 92.
Right. I mean,
that's 92, man. You're talking, Jesus, you know, 28 years ago you're talking.
No, I know. I'm just saying you guys were at a time close, but things changed. He changed.
We were friendly.
Friendly. Okay.
There's differences between acquaintances, friends, good friends, whatever.
Yeah.
We were friends. Okay, fine for a little while, but you see what somebody is made of pretty quick.
Yeah.
You know, and I did things later on to help him that I shouldn't have, but I did it anyway out of the kindness of my heart. And, you know, somebody who has a black heart, you can pretty much read after a while, and that's that.
I gotcha. So there's no plans to repair that relationship, that friendship.
Let's put it this way. I'm going to say this on your show. It's the first time I've ever said it on a show of any kind. If Celebrity Boxing Wrestling called and said, we're going to put you in the ring with them, I would be there with bells on.
Gotcha. Right.
I have friends. And I don't mean friends to go in the ring with me. I need friends to help me.
Yeah, I gotcha.
You know,
yeah.
Mike Tyson is a friend. I can call Mike. I want to learn some more WWE. You know, I have open door policy at Hulk Hogan's house.
Really?
You know, Leaping Lanny Poffo. I can go to his place. Greg Valentine. I can go to his place.
So
I mean, there's a lot of guys that will extend a hand to me if I say, hey, I need this. They'll be like, no problem.
Cool. That's very cool. So you got close with some of those wrestling guys, huh?
I actually, I was what they call free help. I was never an employee of the WWF, but I ring crewed back in late 85 till the beginning of 87. And I did about 160 matches over 16 months, something like that.
No shit.
I was free help. Somebody needed a ride from the airport to the hotel, call Scott. Somebody needs a ride to the arena, call Scott. You need hot dogs and beers, call Scott. Yeah. So, I mean, Roddy Piper, Randy Savage, Miss Elizabeth, Hogan, Beefcake, Valentine, Jimmy Amble Neidhart, Nikolai Volkov.
Wow. Legends.
You know, yeah, and they're my friends. And, you know, the ones that are still here are still my friends. The ones that are gone, I miss.
Yeah.
You know, I loved Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth. And,
did you hang out with them much, Savage and Elizabeth?
Sure.
Yeah,
I probably had dinner with them 30 times. I don't know. You leave back after a while, you know. But Randy would call me at home and say, "Scotty, it's Randy. And I'd be like, what's going on? You coming tomorrow at Washington? Yeah, I get into Dulles at about 2. I get in 3:15. Pick me up, Delta. Okay.
Did you, yeah, I mean, did he want to hear about some of your stories of your days of acting and things like that? Or you guys just talk about other stuff?
I was talking about everything. They were all fans. That's how it starts. I mean, I'm separated from others because of the things that I did, and they were all fans. The first guy I met was Big John Studd, and this guy's 7'4" and 400 pounds, and I meet him, and he smiles at me and goes, Scotty, I got to tell you, I saw the coin, man. I love you. You're phenomenal. You were great, man.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And here it is, and 2 days later, he's in the ring with Andre the Giant. It was like, holy Jesus,
Yeah.
But, so, I mean, I hung out. I know the McMahon family. I know Vince, and I know Linda, and I know Stephanie, and Hunter, and, and through that, different things occurred over the course of time. And then when I moved to California, I kind of got out of it for a while because you're doing other things. You become an adult, you start working in the real world and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I ran into Jerry the King Lawler at an event back in 2013, 14, and in New Jersey, and he was a fan. He's a Christmas Story buff.
Wow.
So as much as I'm sitting there going, oh my God, this is Jerry Lawler who was in the ring with Andy Kaufman. He's looking at me going, dude, you're the guy in Christmas Story. Oh, my God. And he dragged me back into it for a while, and I was going to matches and WrestleManias and all that stuff. And,
yeah,
it's a fun run. And, the McMahons have always been kind to me. Tony Chimmel, who was a ring announcer, he works in the back now. I've known him 30 years. And Mark Eaton, who was a ring crew guy back in the day, and he was the timekeeper at the Bell for 30 years.
Wow, that's really something. I got to ask you about Miss Elizabeth. I mean, was she as sweet as in person as she seemed on video? Absolute sweetest sweetheart you can possibly imagine. I mean, she definitely came off that way. Well, I mean, again, because of who I was and my personality, I treated everybody a certain way. I treat them with kindness. Yeah. And none of the guys in the back would talk to Miss Elizabeth because Randy was very jealous. That was his thing. Yeah. And, they would see me talking to Liz or saying hello or whatever it was. And the guys are like, dude, he's going to put you through a wall one night. and I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. We're friends. And they're like, okay, dude, we warned you. See what happens. Well, Randy, Liz long gone. She passed in 2003. Randy's gone already 5, 6 years, 7 years. Yeah. And I was at an event, now it's a while ago. It was after Randy had passed, right after the Hall of Fame. And Lanny, his brother, tells me, he says, we should have had this conversation years ago. I'm like, okay. He goes, do you have any idea how much my brother loved you and cared for you? I said, we were friends. He called me. No, you don't get it. He goes, in WWF back in the day, there were 3 people that Randy trusted Miss Elizabeth around. Him, Lanny, Randy's brother, yeah, Vince McMahon, and me. Wow. That was it. That was it. And again, you start thinking back into different things. We were at an airport. We were at, I think we were at Dulles, and they had misplaced Randy's luggage, and Liz is there. And Randy comes out, hey, they misplaced my bag. I got to go back in. Okay, fine. We'll be in the car. All right. So I put the bag in the back of the car, and she's sitting in the back seat, and we're chit-chatting. If Randy didn't trust me, that never happened. She would have gone back inside with him. Yeah. Right. But the fact that there was love and care and trust, she's sitting in the back seat with Scotty. It was no big deal. Yeah. When she passed, it hurt. I mean, it was like losing a member of my family. I cried for a month over losing her. And I hadn't seen her in a while or talked to her in a while, and she'd split from Randy and all that stuff. And we know what happened. I cried for a long time. The months were the heaviest, and then whatever. And then when Randy passed, there's more, and then he gets inducted into the Hall of Fame, and there's more emotion, and that was kind of like me letting go of the whole thing. Yeah. But recently, this is, 4 months ago,
I was in Lexington, Kentucky, doing an appearance there. And the hotel I was staying at was 22 miles from Miss Elizabeth's gravesite.
Huh.
And when I knew Lexington, Kentucky, and I said, wait a minute. And I got the place, and the guy that was there with us, kind of a security, he knew where that cemetery was, and I went to her gravesite and, you know, talked to her and cried and cleaned it up, and you do all the things you do, and, you know. But I knew I was going. There was no way I wasn't going to, you know, go there and you know,
pay your respects.
Say what I wanted to say and get some emotions out. You know, She was a great lady. And it's weird. I have a picture with me and Randy, and I don't have a picture with me and Liz.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's too bad. Yeah.
Oh, listen, it kills, you know. And one of my old wrestling friends, you know, that I knew from back in the day. I was in Pennsylvania, and he lives there, and we got together for lunch. And he says, you know, I found this, and I know somebody who he said to me, I know somebody should have this. If anybody should have this, it's you. And he hands me a like tannish envelope, and I looked at it, and it was like I knew what it was when he handed it to me. And I go, is this what I think it is? He goes, well, open it up. And I opened it up, and it was the invitation from SummerSlam to the wedding of Randy Macho Man Savage and Miss Elizabeth.
Wow.
And on the inside, they both signed it.
Oh, man, that is some piece of memorabilia right there.
Well, it's a piece of memorabilia to some. But to me, it's an emotional roller coaster. It's something that I emotionally was invested in.
Yeah.
And to this day, I still love both of them. I mean, they have the old action figures, the LJN big action figures, you know, on the blue cards and whatever. You can look them up on Google or Bing or eBay, whatever.
Yeah.
And I still have my Randy Savage and I have my Miss Elizabeth, and they're both signed.
Wow. And
no matter what, I'm not giving them up. That wedding invitation is going to get framed up in some kind of a double glass thing. I'm going to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And those are mine. You can pretty much say, listen, if I drop dead, throw them in the casket with me.
Yeah.
Because that's what they need.
Wow.
Now, of course, nobody will. Somebody will end up with them, and they won't care as much as I did.
Yeah.
But, you know, those people, you know, them, Hogan, you know, Hogan and I, you know, and I have gone through, you know, the divorces and the marriages and the ups and the downs and the craziness. And I love the man. Absolutely adore him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, there are people that do things in your life that they don't have to do, but they do it because they want to.
Right.
And Hulk's always been that way with me. You know,
yeah.
If there's something, I'm there and he's there. He's like, come hang out with me. Just whatever. I don't care what anybody says. Just hang out with me. Like, okay, boss, you got it.
That's great. So, I mean,
sometimes I call him boss. Sometimes I call him big guy. Sometimes I call him Perry. Sometimes I call him Hulk. It's like, whatever.
Mm-hmm. So your time working with the WWF in that time, you made some really, really great friendships with, you know, people that, you know, a lot of people look at as legends of the business, but you look at them as friends.
Yeah. I mean, listen, The Undertaker is The Undertaker. You know, and I've met Mark, I don't know, 6-8 times over the years, and I just go over to him. I say, hey, big guy, what's up? Hey, my little buddy, how you been? And he gives me a hug, you know, and it's just like The Undertaker.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you think most of these relationships started because you were driving them and you guys would, you know, talk while you're driving, stuff like that?
Probably.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, when you're in the movies, people watch you. You have to look at their ages. You look at what they do. They're in the sports entertainment industry. You know, they were out here for a Monday Night Raw, and I talked to a bunch of people. Okay, fine. And I meet Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman. It was great. And I'm driving home, and Lawler calls me on the phone. He's like, where are you? I said, dude, I left 20 minutes ago. I said goodbye. He's like, oh, my God. John Cena wants to meet you. And I said, that's great. I'm almost home. Forget it. He goes, oh, no. You got to come to SmackDown tomorrow. I'm like, it's in Anaheim. It's an hour and 40-minute ride with any kind of truck. Yeah, I don't care. You got to come down. Fine, Jerry. So I got in the car. We went and had lunch, took me over the arena, and there's John Cena. He's like, oh, my God, it is so nice to meet you. I'm a fan. I love the boy. I love this. Everybody is a fan of somebody. Now, if you go and you go, how old is John Cena? I think he's 41, 42.
Mm-hmm.
He's in his early 40s. Well, go back 30 years. 32 years.
Yeah, right.
He's 9, 10, 11 years old. He's watching the Toy and Christmas Story.
Exactly, right.
So they're fans. Randy Orton. And he kind of knew who I was. Okay, fine, blah, blah, blah. And I said, hey, Randy, I said, I have a favor to ask. He said, what do you want? I said, when you talk to your dad, tell him I said, so yeah, for Cowboy Bob Orton. And he looks at me and he goes, you know my dad? I said, I used to drive your dad to the arena. Don't worry. You just tell him I said hello. He's like, okay. And he still didn't really believe me. I saw him a couple of weeks later, and he walks over to me and he goes, Scotty, my dad said hi back. My dad knows you. I said, of course he does. It's the people and the things that go on. And, there's just loads of great stories and things that happen. And again, it's not because I'm the greatest guy in the world. It's because I'm a decent guy. I'm friendly. And I did movies that people appreciate and still care about. And it's a blessing.
Yeah, right. That's a great way to sum it up right there. That these movies really do, stand the test of time. That you see how many fans you have, and people that really love those movies, and they stay with them for all these years.
Yeah, listen, you could have told me, oh, this is going to happen and that's going to happen, and I would have been like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
But if you're going to tell me over 50 million homes watch A Christmas Story every year, yeah. I would have said, listen, I know there's a doctor that needs to talk to you, okay?
Right.
It's just not the norm. There's tens of thousands of movies that come out, or 10,000 movies a year, 8,000, whatever it is, and very few stick. And Christmas Story stuck, and it's still on the wall, and it's still there, and people still love it, and they see it, and they watch it. It's great. It's got its ups, it's got its positives, it's got its negatives. Everybody, oh, he's a movie star, he must be rich. No, that's not what happens. That's not how it goes.
Yeah.
I gotta work and pay bills like everybody else. But it's nice when you go places and people say, man, you've been a part of our family for 25 years.
That's got to be great to hear, yeah.
Strangers that I've never met before, and they're like, listen, the show ends at 5 o'clock. We would love you to come over for dinner. Because it's like I'm a member of the family.
Yeah.
I'm the cousin they never get to see except on TV. It's like, okay.
That's true. Now, you've had many different jobs, as you talked about the WWF and memorabilia. I know you worked at a memorabilia shop for a while there. Did you know Mancow Muller in Chicago, the radio guy?
Of course. Oh, it was hysterical. I go there. He wanted to get an interview with Dennis Rodman, and Rodman wouldn't talk to any of his people. And I had met Dennis several times, and we were friendly. And I said, I'll get you, Rodman, no problem. He flies me to Chicago, and I get in on Sunday. Nobody calls me. They go, okay, see you at the studio, whatever time it was, 6:20 a.m. Okay, fine. What they failed to tell me was I'm going to be doing the sports, and the sports is not at the studio, it's at the satellite studio. So I go to the wrong place, even though I don't know that.
Yeah.
Well, Mancow is just tearing me to shreds. And I'm like, dude, why are you tearing me up? Nobody told me this. If you'd have told me that, that's where I would have gone. So later that day, Rodman gets suspended. And I'm supposed to be there for like 5 days. Rodman gets suspended. He's not going to be at any of the games. But Mancow's like, listen, go to the arena. We'll have the media patch for you. Go in the Bulls locker room. Talk to whomever. Okay. So I went in, and there's Steve Kerr and Tony Kukoc, and oh God, who was the other guy that I talked to? I talked to Pippen for a few minutes, whatever.
Yeah.
And Jordan didn't come in, and I'm standing there waiting, and I'm like, geez, this is Michael Jordan. I want to meet this guy, whatever. And I don't know if I'm coming back. After the game, I have no idea. So I waited. And I put a photo of me from the toy in his locker. And believe it or not, I didn't even have a photo of Christmas Story, but I had a VHS copy in my bag, and I signed it and I put it in his locker. And the security guy starts taking me out, and Jordan comes out. He goes, excuse me, young man, you left something here. And I turned around. I said, Mr. Jordan, those are for you. He goes, wait a minute, come here. So security guy lets me go for a second. And I walked over to Michael Jordan. He goes, wait a minute, this is you. And I said, yeah. He goes, oh, dude, I'm a big fan.
Really?
And he starts doing me with the tongue stuck on the phone.
Yeah.
This is Michael Jordan.
Unbelievable.
So I said, listen, I'm doing this thing. He goes, well, that's nice. You got to get out of here now. But come back after the game and I'll talk to you no matter what. I said, okay. So I go, I watch the game. I come back after the game. I waited. Media was 7 deep. It was insane. You couldn't get near him. And I'm on the other side of his locker. And there's a doorway there, and I'm on the other side of it. They start escorting. Okay, everybody get out, whatever. And again, I'm almost the last one out. And the guy's like, young man, you got to leave. And I said, well, Mr. Jordan told me to wait. And he's like, well, that's nice. You're going to leave, because he didn't believe me, whatever.
Yeah.
And I said, no, Mr. Jordan told me to wait. And Jordan turned around and saw me. He goes, no. He can stay. He's with me. It's all good. And Jordan took me into the training room, and we talked for 10 minutes. Monster fan. It was great. He's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm doing this thing for Mancow. He goes, oh, well, enjoy that. I'm not doing a thing for Mancow. You have a good time on the show. but the thing is, after that, Mancow and I joked about that for like 5 years. And now I've seen Mancow, I don't even know, a half a dozen times out here in California. He comes out for an autograph event thing, a pop culture show.
Yeah.
And we laugh and we joke and I give him a hug. It's like, how you doing?
Oh, that's cool. So it was a good time working with him for a little bit there, huh?
I have a good time no matter what I'm doing.
Yeah, I can get that.
Doesn't matter. I
get that vibe during our conversation here. So, just a couple more things as we wind down here. This is Scotty Schwartz you're listening to here on the RockStop. And I just want to have a couple questions about the toy. When you guys you and Richard Pryor are going down the stairs in that car thing, how exactly was that scene done? Well, they had a cable attached to the back of the car, but really it's me driving the car. It doesn't have a motor. It did, but they hadn't turned it on. Oh, okay. But they just kind of let us go down the stairs. And if you actually watch it, the car will veer to the left and then turn back to the middle, and I hit the table tray, dead on middle, which was perfect. Yeah. I hit it once. Oh, wow, one time. In one time, that's it, because the car started going to your left, my right, and I thought I was going to go right off the end of the staircase, and I jerked the wheel back and ended up just hitting perfect, and it all worked out, and everybody was happy, and I was just like, holy shit. That's cool. One take, and you nailed it. Nailed it perfectly. And earlier you were mentioning Teresa Ganzel, who, the left-right boob thing there. I have to ask, was it as great looking as I would imagine? Phenomenal. Gotcha. I think you can actually Google it. If you Google it, there's photos you can find. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, she did a National Lampoon movie. That's all I need to say, and you can figure out the rest. Gotcha. But she lives about a half an hour from me. She is a dear, dear friend. A couple years ago, I was at a show, and the guy had original drawings by costume designers on his a vendor was there. And one of my friends grabbed me and pulled me over, and I said, I think you should see this. And the guy actually had the original drawings from the toy that a guy named Moss Mabry, who was the costume designer, had done of her in the white outfit. Oh, wow. So I had they're sitting in front of me, and the guy charged me like double what it should have been, but I didn't care. That was irrelevant. I bought them. I called Teresa. I said, hey, I want to meet you, for a cup of coffee or something. I found something. I got to give it to you. Yeah. And we met up, and we sat down for a cup of coffee, and I've got this big, because it's like 16 by 20. I mean, it's huge. And I've got it in a like a garbage bag, and I handed it to her. She's like, what's this? I said, well, it's yours, so open it up. And she took it out. She's like, oh, my God. And I said, listen, if anybody's supposed to have this on their wall in their house, it's you. That's awesome. Did she love it? She loved it, huh?
she was just like, oh my, what are you going to say? Except thank you, you know. But she gave me a hug and a kiss on my cheek, and she's like, darling, you're wonderful. And I said, I love you. I've noticed since I'm 13 years old. My God, you know.
Yeah.
While we were shooting, one of my birthday things was she actually took me out to an amusement park. And it wasn't really an amusement park. It was more like an arcade kind of thing, you know, with video games and e-ball and all. Well, in there was a little photo booth, you know, where you go in and the 4 photos come out.
Oh, yeah.
Well, believe it or not, I still have the 4 photos of me and Teresa.
I'm sure they were great.
Yeah, now they're scanned, you know, so I have them, and I can't ever lose them. They're on, you know, disc and in my backup and in my double backup and, you know, all that stuff. But, you know, those are just, you know, great memories of just great people. You know, I was, again, like I said before, I was lucky that I worked with so many different people and never felt abused, never felt taken advantage of, you know, as a kid. Never any of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I was treated like an adult. I acted like an adult. You know, I mean, working overtime or doing whatever needed to be done to get the job done. That's what I did. And they appreciated that. They saw the work ethic.
And yeah, so you got a lot of great memories there, classic movies you starred in, and great lifelong friends you've made from these experiences. So mostly a positive time in your show business career, huh?
Yeah. You know, like I said, you know, I mean, life is a strange thing. Nobody said life is fair. Life is up, life is down.
Yeah.
But the last thing anybody who passes away would want you to do is crawl up in a ball in a corner and just give up.
Yeah.
They would, you know, Richard Pryor would want me to live every day happy as a pancake. I mean, that's the way he was.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And, you know, learn so much for the decades and decades that I'm in my 43rd year of being in show business.
Wow. Yeah. I mean,
you know,
yeah.
And you know, you gain a certain knowledge from experiences, and my job is to share that knowledge. And I talk to some of the biggest younger stars on the planet, and I tell them things, and they look at me like I'm insane. and I say to them, listen, I know you think I'm crazy and I'm out of my mind, but I've been where you are or close to it. Maybe not as the big of a star as you are, and maybe certainly not as rich as you are, but I'm telling you, save your money. Yeah. Find somebody and you fall in love. Make babies. You got enough? Get the hell out of this thing. Go enjoy life.
I think that's great advice. You know? Yeah, that's great advice for these kids that, you know, may think they know it all right now, but, you know, they certainly don't.
You know, and again, but then others, you know, you hit them in certain places. You know, there was one young actor, I don't mention names, and he was like 16. He was on a series and he's doing great and all this stuff, and he's kind of meeting the wrong people. Yeah. And his mom got a hold of me and, you know, can you talk to my kid? He's starting to smoke pot and I'm worried he's only 16. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. And lived in LA, and I said to his mom, okay, I said, but you have to let me do this my way. I said, you have to understand, I'm not here to hurt the kid. And she's like, oh, no, I know that. So I actually took the kid into Hollywood, drove into Hollywood, and we walked up and down Sunset. And we walked by the Viper Room. And this is about 5 years ago now. We walked up, we passed the Viper Room. And I said, okay, stop for a minute. I said, do you know where you're standing? He said, no. And other than we're in front of the Viper Room. I said, right. Do you know who River Phoenix is?
Yeah.
And he said, no, who's that? And I said, that's going to be your homework. And we walked back to the car, we drove him home. I talked to him a little bit about River, and I told him, you know, he started smoking pot, and then it was this, and then it was that. And in his mid-20s, he's got the brass ring, and he's a superstar, and he OD'd.
Yep.
And you're doing exactly what he did and how he started. I said, my job is to not let you go down that road. That's my job.
Right.
I want you to live a happy, good life. I said, your homework is to look up River Phoenix and read his Wikipedia page. And the kid said, okay. And I took, I dropped him off home, and I thought, Mom, we'll see what happens. Let me know in a couple of weeks, whatever. And she called me up a couple of weeks later. She's like, I don't know what the hell you said to my kid, but he stopped hanging out with those people and he's been fine. And then I told her, sometimes it's not mom or dad who can have an impact on somebody. The kid knew who I was. He respected my work. He liked my work. So when I talked to him, not in a way of talking to a kid, but talking to a young adult saying, dude, this is not what you do. I'm just telling you, this is what this, And I explained to her about the River Phoenix thing or whatever. And I said, good, hopefully from here on out should be smooth sailing. And she called me up like 6 months later and said, you're the best. My kid is awesome.
Yeah, that's
I did my job.
Right on. It got to make you feel great doing that. And it's interesting how you say, you talk to him not like he's a kid, but like he's an adult. And that's kind of how you were treated as when you were a young guy.
Exactly. Listen, I talk to 12-year-olds as though they're adults. It depends on how they talk to me.
Right.
If they're giggly, itsy bitsy, okay, I can't quite talk to them the same way. I've got to kind of, angle it to where they can understand a little bit more. If I'm talking to a 15 or 16-year-old, that's different.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
If I'm talking to a 17 or 18-year-old with a head on their shoulders, you can really impact somebody's life because you can give them knowledge. You can give them something to draw from in their experiences.
Yeah.
I said to you before, Richard Pryor told me I could tell him about anything.
Yeah.
So when there was booze involved, and I would take a drink or whatever, and I'm 16 or 17 years old, I call Richard. Hey, I did this. How do you feel? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then there was, I've never been a druggie in my life. Did I smoke pot for a couple months during high school? Sure, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But, I can tell you I did one certain drug one time, and I felt guilty as all hell about it. And I called Richard. And he said, well, what was the situation? I said, well, there was more than one girl getting naked in front of me, and they wanted me to have fun with them. And he goes, well, what the hell is your problem? I said, well, you've always said to me this and this. He goes, yes, I understand. He goes, are you ever going to do it again? I said, no. He's like, good, you're fine. Live and learn. And then he sits, and then he wanted to talk to me for half an hour about what happened that night.
Yeah.
But so I had this teacher. I give a lot of my growth as a man, as a person, the maturity. I say it's not me. I didn't do it. Richard created the machine. He fed the information into my brain. And it was important for me to listen to him because I knew he spoke from experience.
Yeah. Right.
He didn't, and he spoke from the heart, and he spoke from love, and he spoke that he wanted me to learn and understand all these things. So I had that benefit. So anytime I run into somebody and I get the glimpses of things, I can say, hey, I know where you're going. I know what's going on. I've been there. I've seen it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. It's really structured a lot of your life.
Yeah. Listen, there were times when Corey Haim wasn't doing so well, and he had to get out of his place. Not that he had to move or anything, but he just needed to get out of his apartment.
Yeah.
And he would come and stay with me, and he'd stay with me and do laundry, and I cook for him and whatever. And he was my little brother. And in my home, he was clean and sober because that's me. I don't do that shit.
Right. You kept him away. Yeah. And
you can only try. That's the thing. You, as they say, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Right. You can only do so much. Yeah.
If somebody is ready to listen, they're going to listen. If they're not ready, they're going to hear what you have to say, but they're not really going to listen.
Yep, exactly.
I hate to see any of my child star friends or peers, anything happen to them, whether it be Dana Plato or Gary Coleman or Corey Haim or Jonathan Brandis. I don't want to see these things. I want to inform. I want to talk to these kids.
Right.
Yeah. There was a kid that was on a big TV show several years ago making $1 gazillion a week, and he's talking bad about his show. And I'm like, who can I get a hold of to get to this kid to put some brains back in?
Right.
Yeah. And again, most of the kids of this generation know the work that I've done. They don't know who I am. They don't necessarily know me. But when we sit down and have a conversation, it's different than most. It's not, hey, man, you want a show that's really cool, man. I'm happy. No, that's not the conversation we have.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
I sit there and I go, okay, you're 17, you're 20. Great. The show's going to last a couple more years. Then what the hell are you going to do?
Right. Very important. Very important.
You know, what do you like? And one says, oh, I want to be a writer. Great. Do you go in on the meetings of the writers? You know, well, no, why not? If you want to be a writer, tell them you want to go to a meeting. Trust me, it's a free education.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to direct. Great. If you're not on the set, stand next to the director. Tell them you want to learn from it. Right. Trust me, you'll get a free education.
It's great advice, man. That's really great advice.
There's very few Jodie Fosters and Ron Howards out there.
Right. They're the exception, it seems.
You know, they learned how to do it at such a young age, and they had the love, and they got the knowledge, and they wanted it, and they kept going.
Yep.
But yet you see so many young people that are, you know, 8, 9, 10, and they're on a TV series for 10 years, 8 years, or whatever. And then they can't get work, and they don't know what else to do. I'm an actor. No, you are an actor on a series. Now what do? You're taking orders at a restaurant. You're being a waitress. You work in valet at the hotel. That's not being an actor.
Right. That's true.
You're a striving actor or a striving actress.
Yeah.
You and 8 million other people. But the ones that get jobs and even if they don't become mega stars, they just happen to be on whatever. If they just learn what's going on, they could have work the rest of their life. Just learn how to be a grip or a tech or a lighting guy or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's part of my job, of my age and my experience, is to share knowledge.
That's great. And I think you've done that quite nicely here on the show tonight. And it's definitely appreciated that you've come on and shared these stories and shared this advice. And it's been great talking with you, Scott.
Absolutely, Chris. You asked. Okay, you got it.
Take care, okay?
Listen, you have a great, healthy, successful 2020 and beyond.
Same to you, man. Same to you.
You're a good host. You close, you know.
I appreciate it.
I've done a few of these. I've done a few of these over the last 35.
Yeah, I bet. All right. So, this was a lot of fun. And I thank you for taking the time and coming on the show here.
You got it. Take care, Chris. You be well.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.